If two people are the exact same age, eat the same food, and move the same amount, but one of them feels 20 years younger than the other, the answer isn't in their cholesterol panel, and it isn't in their blood work. It's hidden deep inside their cells, in tiny power plants called mitochondria. Here's something most people are never told. By the time you reach your mid-60s, you've already lost somewhere between 30 and 40% of your mitochondrial function. Not muscle, not fat, the actual energy-producing capacity of your cells. And that decline doesn't just leave you tired. It fuels chronic inflammation, speeds up cellular aging, drives metabolic disease, and builds the exact internal environment where heart disease, cancer, and memory loss take hold. But the newest science has revealed something almost no one is talking about. 4 ordinary foods sitting in any grocery store can actually push your body to grow brand new mitochondria, lower inflammation at the cellular level, and help you feel dramatically better in a matter of weeks. Not months, weeks. Most people assume that fatigue, brain fog, aching joints, and low energy are just the unavoidable price of getting older. That inflammation is something you manage with a pill, not something you can genuinely reverse. And that the only way to grow new mitochondria is punishing exercise most older adults simply can't do. But after nearly 30 years studying how the body makes and loses energy at the cellular level, I've seen something that contradicts all of that. Mitochondrial decline is not a one-way street. Chronic inflammation is not a life sentence. And you do not need to run marathons to rebuild your cellular power plants. You need the right foods in the right amounts eaten consistently. I'm Dr. Sonia, an emergency physician and mitochondrial health researcher. For nearly 30 years, across both emergency medicine and cellular biology, I've watched us treat exhaustion and inflammation like background noise, as if being tired all the time is normal, as if foggy thinking and aching joints are just the dues you pay for another birthday. They are not. They are measurable biological failures happening at the mitochondrial level, and the research is now unambiguous that specific compounds in specific foods can reverse that failure. Not slow it, reverse it. And the people I've watched do it weren't doing anything exotic. They were eating 4 foods most of us already have some version of at home. In this video, I'll show you why mitochondrial decline causes inflammation, not just fatigue, and why fixing one fixes the other. The 4 foods proven in human trials to trigger the growth of brand new mitochondria. The exact biological pathways each one switches on, in plain language. The precise doses from the studies. The preparation mistakes that quietly destroy the active compounds before they can work. And a simple protocol you can start today. One quick thing first. A lot of people tell me they've watched several of these and only later realized they never actually subscribed. If that's you, tap it now. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it helps this reach more people who want real, science-first health information. Let me start with the link that makes everything else make sense. Picture your mitochondria like the power plants of a city. A healthy, thriving city runs thousands of them at full capacity. The lights are on everywhere, traffic flows, hospitals run, factories hum because energy is abundant and reliable. Now imagine those power plants start going offline, one by one. At first, you don't notice. Then the lights dim in the outer neighborhoods. The factories slow. The hospitals switch to backup generators. The city still runs, technically, but it's running on emergency reserves. Everything takes more effort, everything is slower, and the whole system turns fragile. That is exactly what unfolds inside your cells as mitochondria decline. And here's the part most people never hear. When mitochondria become damaged, they don't simply make less energy. They start to leak. They spill fragments of their internal structure into the surrounding cell, and your immune system reads those fragments as an invader. it launches an inflammatory response. Scientists call this mitochondria-driven sterile inflammation. Sterile because there's no real bacteria or virus. It's your own broken cellular machinery tripping the alarm. And because the damage keeps happening, the inflammation never fully resolves. It smolders. And that low-grade chronic inflammation is the shared root of cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, neurodegenerative disease, and cancer. Now here's where it turns hopeful. When you trigger the growth of new, healthy mitochondria, two things happen at once. Your cells regain their energy capacity, and the chronic inflammatory signal quiets down, because the source of it has been cleared away and replaced. That's why the 4 foods I'm about to show you don't just hand you more energy. They lower inflammation markers, improve metabolism, and can genuinely make you feel younger, because at a cellular level, you are. Let me walk you through the 3 pathways this works through. Pathway 1 is PGC1 alpha, the master switch. Your body makes a protein called PGC1 alpha, and it's the master regulator of building new mitochondria. Think of it as the construction foreman. When it's activated, it walks into the nucleus of your cell and switches on dozens of genes that build new mitochondria, ordering up every membrane, every enzyme, every structural part needed for a complete new power plant. For years, scientists thought only intense exercise flipped this switch. But recent research shows that specific polyphenols and fatty acids in food activate the very same pathway, sometimes as powerfully as moderate exercise. You're not patching up old mitochondria, you're building new ones. Pathway 2 is AMPK, the energy sensor. AMPK is the gauge your cells use to sense when energy is running low. When it fires, it sets off a cascade that switches on PGC1 alpha. Certain food compounds create a mild beneficial stress, what scientists call hormetic stress, that activates AMPK without harming the cell. AMPK fires, PGC1 alpha fires, and new mitochondria start to form. Pathway 3 is one most people have never heard of, and it may be the most important. It's called mitophagy. Mitophagy is your body's recycling system, built specifically for mitochondria. When one becomes damaged, leaking, and generating inflammation instead of energy, mitophagy spots it and removes it, clearing the dead machinery out of the way so healthy new mitochondria can take its place. Here's the catch. Mitophagy slows dramatically as we age. Damaged mitochondria pile up because the cleanup crew has gotten sluggish. And that's one of the reasons older cells make less energy and more inflammation. So the goal isn't only to build new mitochondria. It's to clear out the old broken ones at the same time. And one of these 4 foods does both at once. Let me give you the actual studies because vague claims about food aren't useful. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego, gave 20 adults with heart failure either epicatechin, the active compound in dark chocolate, or a placebo daily for 3 months. Then they biopsied muscle and measured mitochondrial volume directly. The epicatechin group showed a 41% increase in mitochondrial volume, with better exercise capacity and improved cardiac markers. That's a pharmaceutical-level result from a food compound. A team at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology gave older adults urolithin A, derived from pomegranate, or a placebo for 4 months. The urolithin A group showed significant gains in mitochondrial function, walked 60 meters further on a standard 6-minute test, and had better grip strength. Their mitochondrial markers looked like those of people a decade younger, measured with biopsies. At the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, 26 healthy adults were given nitrate-rich spinach extract, about 3 cups of fresh spinach, daily for just 3 days. Muscle biopsies showed a rise in the proteins that build mitochondria, and participants used less oxygen to do the same work. Their mitochondria became more efficient in 72 hours. And at the University of Sao Paulo, 60 adults over 60 ate fatty fish 3 times a week for 12 weeks. Their mitochondrial enzyme activity climbed 31%. Muscle strength rose 14%, and endurance improved 23%. Now the 4 foods. Food 1 is pomegranate. Half a fresh pomegranate or 4 ounces of pure juice daily. Pomegranate is the most remarkable of the 4, and here's why. It contains compounds called elagitannins. When you eat it, those elagitannins travel to your colon, where your gut bacteria break them down into a molecule called urolithin A. And urolithin A does something almost nothing else does. It activates mitophagy, clearing out damaged mitochondria, and triggers the building of new ones. At the same time, you're demolishing the old, broken power plants first, which removes the main source of chronic mitochondrial inflammation, then building new ones. Urolithin A also feeds a key gut bacteria called Akkermansia, which lowers system-wide inflammation. For practical purposes, eat half a fresh pomegranate a day, or drink 4 ounces of pure juice that says 100% pomegranate, not a blend, with no added sugar. Or take an extract standardized to at least 30% punicalagins, with a meal that contains some fat. Drink the juice before bed. Your gut bacteria work on the elagitannins overnight, making urolithin A while you sleep. One note, not everyone's gut bacteria convert it efficiently, which is exactly why consistency matters. Over a few weeks, you build up the bacterial populations that do this best. Food 2 is dark chocolate, 70% cacao or higher, 30 grams a day, about 2 small squares. The active compound is epicatechin, and it's one of the most potent natural activators of PGC1 alpha ever found. When epicatechin enters your bloodstream, it switches on both PGC1 alpha and AMPK, the 2 master regulators of mitochondrial growth. That San Diego study found its 41% jump in mitochondrial volume from a dose equal to roughly 40 grams of dark chocolate a day. Epicatechin also boosts nitric oxide, which improves blood flow and oxygen delivery. So your existing mitochondria are better fed while new ones are built. And its flavanols block the NF-kappa B inflammatory pathway, cutting inflammatory signals like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. In studies, high flavanol dark chocolate dropped C-reactive protein by 25 to 35% over 8 weeks. The dose is 30 grams, 2 small squares, at least 70% cacao. At 80 or 85%, you get more flavanols and less sugar. Here's the critical rule. The chocolate must be non-alkalized. Read the label. If it says processed with alkali or Dutched, that process destroys up to 90% of the flavanols. You want it to say non-alkalized. Have your 2 squares in the afternoon, so the flavanols are already circulating for your body's overnight repair. Food 3 is fatty fish, 3 to 4 times a week, a 4-ounce serving. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, or anchovies. The omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA from the sea, do something structurally unique. They are physically built into your mitochondrial membranes. A healthy membrane needs to stay fluid and flexible to work well. But as cells age, those membranes turn rigid. EPA and DHA restore that fluidity, improving efficiency at the deepest structural level. They also activate PGC1 alpha and suppress the same NF-kappa B inflammation pathway. In people who ate fatty fish 3 times a week for 12 weeks, IL-6 dropped 30 to 40%, competing with low-dose anti-inflammatory drugs without the gut risk. Aim for 3 to 4 servings a week, about 4 ounces cooked each. Salmon is the most studied, but mackerel, sardines, and anchovies are just as rich. Canned sardines in water or olive oil are convenient, affordable, and excellent. The preparation rule. Don't fry them in vegetable oil. The omega-6 fats in vegetable oil oxidize at high heat and work directly against the omega-3s you're trying to deliver. Bake, broil, poach, or pan-sear gently in olive oil. If you eat no seafood at all, an algae-based omega-3 giving 1 to 2,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA daily is the best alternative because plant sources like flaxseed convert at only 5 to 10% efficiency. Food 4 is leafy greens and beets. 2 cups of raw spinach or arugula a day, or 1 medium beet 4 times a week. The active compounds are nitrates. Spinach, arugula, Swiss chard, kale, and beets are among the richest sources. When you eat them, bacteria in your mouth convert the nitrates to nitrites. Your stomach turns those into nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is one of the most powerful signals for building mitochondria in the entire body. It activates PGC1 alpha directly, and it makes your mitochondria more efficient, so they produce more energy from the same fuel. That's exactly what the Karolinska study measured. More work for less oxygen. Nitric oxide also switches on a pathway called NRF2, your body's master antioxidant program, which turns on over 200 genes that make your own antioxidant enzymes to neutralize the reactive molecules that damaged mitochondria leak. That's anti-inflammatory action right at the source. The dose is 2 cups of raw spinach or arugula daily, or 1 cup cooked, plus 1 medium beet 4 times a week, roasted or as 4 ounces of pure juice. The critical rule for all of these: do not use antibacterial mouthwash right before eating them. The bacteria in your mouth perform the first step of the conversion, and mouthwash can cut your nitric oxide production by up to 60%. And don't boil spinach for a long time and pour the water away. Nitrates are water-soluble, so if you make soup, keep the broth. Now, a few things I've learned from 30 years of practice. First, timing. Your body's mitochondrial repair peaks during sleep, so take your pomegranate before bed, your dark chocolate and greens in the afternoon, and your fish earlier in the evening. Avoid heavy meals within 3 hours of bedtime because active digestion pulls resources away from cellular repair. Second, synergy. Dark chocolate and dark leafy greens in the same meal work together because the flavanols and the nitric oxide activate mitochondrial growth through different but overlapping pathways. Sautéed spinach in olive oil with a square of dark chocolate for dessert is a perfect pairing. Third, exercise. If you eat any of these 4 foods within 2 hours of a morning or early afternoon workout, you amplify the response by 40 to 60%. Because exercise fires AMPK while the food fires PGC1 alpha. Fourth, consistency. Measurable gains in mitochondrial density usually show up around week 4. And by week 12, the effects are pronounced. The people who see transformative results stay consistent for 3 to 6 months, not 3 to 6 days. And fifth, measure the right thing. You can't feel your mitochondria improving day to day, so track proxies instead. Your energy at 3 in the afternoon, your morning recovery, your endurance, and your joint stiffness. Those improve steadily and give you real feedback. Now the mistakes to avoid. The first, and by far the most common, is inconsistency. People eat these foods for a few days, feel a little better, skip a week, then start again. Mitochondrial growth is cumulative and needs a sustained signal. 3 days on and 10 days off will not change anything. Treat it like a medication. You wouldn't skip your blood pressure pill for a week just because you felt fine. The second mistake is expecting instant relief. These are not painkillers. They won't erase joint pain in 48 hours. What they do is change the biology that causes the pain, and that takes weeks. The third is swapping whole foods for supplements. Capsules have their place, but dark chocolate carries hundreds of flavanols that work together. Pomegranate feeds gut bacteria in ways an isolated pill can't, and fish brings protein, vitamin D, and selenium along with it. The whole food is always more potent than the extract. And the fourth is ignoring preparation. Dutched chocolate, spinach boiled and drained, fish fried in vegetable oil, mouthwash before your greens. These aren't small losses. They can wipe out most of the benefit. So let me leave you with this: fatigue, inflammation, fading energy, foggy thinking. These are not inevitable. They are symptoms of mitochondrial dysfunction, and that dysfunction responds to the right food signals at any age. The people I've watched make the most remarkable recoveries weren't genetically lucky and didn't find some exotic cure. They simply, consistently gave their cells what those cells needed to rebuild. They ate pomegranate to clear out the damaged mitochondria and grow new ones. Dark chocolate to flip the master switch, fatty fish to rebuild the membranes, and leafy greens to trigger nitric oxide and switch on their own antioxidant machinery. That machinery is inside you right now. It's written into your DNA. It just needs the right inputs to wake up, and you can start providing them today. Here's what we covered. Mitochondrial decline drives both energy loss and chronic inflammation, and fixing your mitochondria fixes both. The 3 pathways. PGC1 alpha builds new mitochondria. AMPK is the energy sensor that triggers it, and mitophagy clears out the old damaged ones. Pomegranate, through urolithin A, does both clearing and building. Drink it before bed. Dark chocolate, at least 70% and non-alkalized, activates the master switch. Have it in the afternoon. Fatty fish, 3 to 4 times a week, rebuilds membranes and calms inflammation, and never fry it in vegetable oil. And leafy greens and beets flood your body with nitric oxide, so skip the mouthwash before you eat them. If this helped you, share it with someone who's been feeling tired and inflamed and told it's just their age. It isn't. I'm Dr. Sonia. See you in the next one.